What is the most important factor in determining value of an asset? Number one factor, if you're going to value an asset, stocks, bonds, real estate, yourself, what would be the number one factor that would drive value for yourself? What is it? Future cash flow potential. Exactly. Is it the discount rate? No, it's cash flow. Okay. So how would you maximize your value? You. Yep, to do what? To do what? What are you gonna do with the job? Anybody can get a job. Yeah, but how do you maximize your value? You just don't get a job and earn money. What do you try to maximize? Yeah, but what is that? What should that relate to? If you maximize the knowledge and your experience, what comes in return? Money. Some valuations. How do you value yourself? How do you value real estate? Value real estate. This is the nomenclature of knowledge. I'm going to try to do this in 30 minutes. Somebody's going to have to time it and tell me when I got 10 minutes, 5 minutes.
Oh, damn.
This is the nomenclature of knowledge. When you're determining the valuation, the value of equity, not only the value of the equity of the real estate, but the value of your equity. The value of your equity is going to be determined by the knowledge that you understand. And these knowledge bases, you're in the business school. It's the most valuable degree out there because you're using multiple institutions of knowledge to basically derive value and to be able to analyze value and analyze yourself. So when you determine the value of an individual or the value of a piece of real estate, you got to approach it from an accounting standpoint. You have to understand managerial and financial accounting and roll those up into financial ratios to then gain access to capital in the capital markets through financial analysis. You have to understand the economics, both the monetary policy and fiscal policy, what the impact is going to be on the value of your equity and the value of your real estate. Taxes go up, the values go up. When taxes go up, do you have more money? No, it doesn't destroy value. Yep. If the Fed decides to raise interest rates, the value of equities go up? No. So you have to understand the economics. You got to understand the politics in which these policies are being formulated in Washington and in Sacramento and at the local level. Because the politics are going to determine the policies. And the policies are going to be administered through the bureaucracy. And the policies are going to have direct and indirect impact on the value of you and the value of your real estate and your stock portfolios. So you need to be looking at what these politicians are doing, what policies are being enacted, and you have to ask the question, is it going to hurt me or is it going to benefit me? Is it going to hurt my client or is it going to benefit my client? If it hurts us, you have to do something about it and get out of the way. If it's going to benefit you and benefit your client, then you have to move in the outcomes, the positive externalities, the positive policy outcomes, so that you can leverage and take advantage of those policy outcomes. Also, you have to understand philosophy and theology, and psychology and sociology, because those all have an impact on valuations. And what allows you to put this together is basically a simultaneous equation solution, multiple regression models, to solve the dependent variable, which is the value of the equity, the value of the real estate, the value of your equity. In 1996, when I designed this, we couldn't do this. We couldn't really program it, and we couldn't solve it because big data applications and the advancement in data processing have not really occurred yet. But now, you have so much infinite storage, big data analytics, quantum computing, and you have a million-fold advancements in data processing. You can now program this thing and actually calculate it. Before you really couldn't do it. So the question is, how do you calculate it? Well, the way you calculate it, if you understand that basically valuation calculations is a multidisciplinary approach, there's 50 variables in each one of these equations. There's 11 equations and 50 variables each. It's an 11 by 50 factorial, which makes it almost impossible for a computer to actually calculate the direction of the value of the equity going up and down. But the human brain, your human brain, is actually capable of doing this, of solving the solution, because the human brain is a biological machine that actually can calculate up to 1 trillion transactions per day. So basically, you as an individual have a supercomputer sitting on the top of your head that can infinitely store, retrieve, process data into information, and use the information to be able to make decisive decisions and know that the decisions that you're making are correct. The question is, do you realize that you have a supercomputer sitting on your head and that you can use it in a very powerful way? Couple that biological machine with new technologies and networking. This is basically a supercomputer too. Maybe you don't realize it, but you have a supercomputer in your pocket. This was actually used to take up rooms and rooms and rooms of computers in the 50s and the 60s. You now have it in your pocket. So between the biological capabilities of your brain and the technological capabilities given to you, you are the most powerful generation ever, period. So the question then becomes, what are you going to do? What are you going to do with the power that you have? Are you going to use it for good, or are you going to use it for evil? That's up to you to decide. And that becomes a moral and an ethical decision. You do this. You may think this is a little funny. Try solving the solution in Baghdad. Try doing it in Mosul. Try doing it in some other Middle East country that's completely destroyed civilization and knowledge. Try to do it. We here in the university are the luckiest people to be able to live in an environment where we can actually learn this stuff and then take this into the civilization and do good. Now, you gentlemen are going to be working on architecture. And architecture is the reflection of civilization. There's no architecture in Mosul. None. Zero. So there's no civilization. We take it for granted that we can be in a place where we can learn and have aspirations to move forward for ourselves, for our family, and take for granted the peace that we have in the beauty that surrounds us. It's not everybody everywhere in the world, but we have it here. Take advantage of it. And then the linguistics and the language and the culture is all standardized. Pretty much, you go to major metropolitan areas, you turn off your phones. You turn off your computers. This is the most important lecture that you probably ever do. Okay? And it is not working out for you. Okay? This is the most important lecture you ever hear. The standardization of culture and language. The English language is a standardization. You can do business anywhere in the world. You go to other places in the world, into their metropolitan areas, they all look like this. They all talk English. It's all standardization. We can communicate on a global basis, which makes it extremely powerful to do things in other countries. We have telecommunications and technology now that enable us to be able to move quicker and faster and obtain the knowledge that we need to be able to make decisive decisions as we go forward. And architecture is the reflection of civilization at the end of the day. So the major takeaway from this, it's machine language, it's machine learning. It's basically how the world works. It's multidisciplinary, it's cross-sectional, it's social sciences. It's a complex system of institutions and equations. There are variables in one equation that are also in the other. It's multi-institutional. We have to solve the valuation equation in a simultaneous regression solution. It's big data applications, biological processing with infinite storage. This is your operating system. This is your operating system to move forward. Because you will have infinite storage capabilities and infinite data processing capabilities. Again, you are the most powerful generation ever. The second model is the organizational behavior and organizational design model. And I designed these 7 models for the colleague, she became the president of an all-women's real estate organization. And she asked me to consult her and mentor her because she thought that I could really help her out. Organizational diagnostic and logistics. It's the most important thing you're going to do when you talk to anybody. When you talk to anybody, the first thing you're going to ask yourself is, where is the person coming from? Where are they in the hierarchical structures of the organization? Where is their power emanating from? Who is the individual? What's their credentials? And where did they come from? Because you're going to land somewhere within an organization if you have those aspirations, which I think you do because you're going to business school. So you're going to work within an organization. You're probably going to start here at the bottom in the team, in the virtual team approach, where you're working on projects in teams, cross-functionally, cross-sectionally, cross-products within the organization. Then if you have aspirations, which I think you do because you're studying a business degree, that you want to probably move up into a managerial position, vice president, executive vice president. Maybe you want to go on and become the CEO, COO, CEO, CFO, CTO, some kind of C-suite in the organization. So the first thing you need to understand is when you're talking to people, where are they coming from within the organization? Not only at what level, but what functional line or what product line are they coming from? Because they're not going to have patience talking to you. They're going to expect you to talk to them in their language. So you have to be able to talk to people at very high levels of the organization, people at the bottom of the organization, and across function and across product types within the organization with very precise language. Then you're going to want to probably move up in the organization. Now here's the problem. You're going to try to move up, but you may run into some kind of bottleneck, some kind of glass ceiling based on race or gender or some other type of discriminatory practice within the organization. The question is, what do you do? Do you sit there and basically deal with that glass ceiling, or are you ready to move not only outside the organization, If you run into a glass ceiling and a bottleneck and they're not willing to give you what you think you deserve based on the value that you've added within the organization, you have to move. If you stay, you're destroying your value. So you have to be able to understand where you are and where you're going within the organization. If you can't, you got to go someplace else. So the first thing you need to do is to do an organizational scan of the structure of the organization. What is the design of the organization based on industry, and what is the company's competitive advantage and competitive disadvantage? You have to determine your location within the organization. You have to understand the role, in what position, what division within the organization that you're in, and you have to be able to articulate constantly the value that you bring within that position, within that division, within the organization, where you're not going to be able to arbitrage your human capital, and you're not going to be able to articulate the value that you built within the organization based on the experience that you've accumulated. You got to be willing to move, and you got to be willing to execute. When you move, you got to execute flawlessly. You cannot burn bridges, because you may go back to the organization in the future at some point in time at a higher level. You got to be able to communicate both vertically within the organization and horizontally, and you got to be ready to go at all times. If you get a better opportunity and you're running into a bottleneck, you got to leave. You got to be ready to go. You also have to have a strategic plan. If you don't have a strategic plan, you're being reactionary in your career. You've got to lay out a plan. And you got to be willing, and you have to know what you're willing to sacrifice and what you're not willing to sacrifice. If you want to move up in the organization, you have to make sacrifices. What are you willing to sacrifice? What are you not willing to sacrifice? Do the sacrifice, whatever it is. It's going to cost you time. Okay? Time is your enemy. Time is your resource. What are you willing to sacrifice? What are you not willing to sacrifice? Is it your school? Is it your job? Is it music? Is it sports? Is it friends? Is it family? You have to ask yourself, what are you willing to sacrifice and what are you not willing to sacrifice? And that will determine where you go and how far and how fast. The bachelor's degree, which is what you're working on right now, is just the ticket into the baseball game. It doesn't get you on the field to become a professional player. Once you graduate with a degree, and that can take between 4 and 7 years, depending on where you go and what your obligations are. Once you get the bachelor's degree, you're in this Bardo state, this interim, this associate level between grad school and upper level responsibilities within the organization. Once you graduate, you start the process. If you're in accounting, you're doing the CFA. If you're in engineering, you're getting the engineering license. You're getting the project management certification. If you're in accounting, you're getting your CPA. If you're going into real estate, you're getting your brokers and your agency license. If you're going into wealth management, you got to get the 66 to 7, and you got to get the life insurance. That just gets you here. Then 2 years before you go to grad school, and you want to set yourself up to go to the best school. Because the best school, they always come back to the best school, and they recruit from the best school, and they will not let you fail if you go to the school in which these people went to. So I say if you can do it, go to the Ivy League. Go to the Ivy League. Get the best on your GMAT. Don't worry about the money, because the money will come. If you go to the best school, and you get in during your internship, between your first and second year, you will get a job offer, and they will probably say that we will take out your loans, and we will basically pay for the rest of your program. Then, once you graduate, you're in this associate apprentice program, working underneath an ED and a vice president or a managing director. These people are extremely mobile. They're trying to go to the top and the CEO. So once these people move out, you move up and you take their position. And that position there, this is 2 years, this could be 3 to 5 years in this position before you move up into the EVP, VP, or the managing director position, and you can spend another 10 years there. Then when you get to the CEO position, if you're really willing to sacrifice, you can spend 10 to 20 years up there too, but you're definitely going to have to sacrifice them if you want to become a CEO or a CFO or a COO. Now here's the sad part about the whole thing, is probably your parents and yourself spent a lot of money to get yourself here, right? They basically nurtured you, they gave you a good place to live, they took care of you, they sent you the best schools that they could, they gave you the environment that you needed to get here, to get into college, so that then you could move on with your degree and move up, right? And basically move to a higher standard of living. But here's the sad part about it. If you go on, after you graduate, and you make on average between basically $100,000 a year for the next 30 to 40 years, you sitting here right now in that seat are worth between $3 and $4 million. You are worth between $3 and $4 million if you can make an average of $100,000 a year for the next 30 to 40 years. But here's the sad part about it. If something happens to you, you get Crohn's disease, you get hit by a bus, you get murdered in San Francisco, you get diabetes, you get multiple sclerosis, you get something like that. You think it's funny, I have clients that died at 22 with 3 kids and a wife, and they got nothing. Zero. Nothing. The family got nothing, the kids and the wife got no good, but the grandparents that couldn't really take care of them, it was horrible. That could happen to you. So I say do yourself a favor and do your family a favor and get life insurance. It only costs you $400 a year for 30 years for $1 million. Do yourself a favor, do your family a favor, get the life insurance. It only costs $400 a year. That's basically your beer budget for a month. Spend the $400. Replace the income. If something ever happens to you, your family will get the money and they will be better off. Be responsible. You guys are emancipated adults now. Take the responsibility, get the life insurance while you're healthy. Do it now, because you can't get it when you get sick. If you get a cancer, you can't get it. If you get Crohn's, you can't get it. So it's off the table. Be responsible, get the life insurance. So basically what this tells you is 20 to 30 years is going to go really, really quick, I promise you. It will go really quick. Don't worry about the money. Don't worry about the money. Get a plan and stay on track. Shoot for the best school and shoot for the best program. Do not let anybody get in your way. This is the biggest obstacle that I found. Is people would get in my way. They would say, oh, Larry, what are you doing? Why are you getting 5 master's degrees? Oh, I want to become a financial engineer. I don't even know what that means. You must love school. Yes, I love school. Nobody cares, in most cases, what you're doing, because you don't have time to tell them exactly what you're doing. So you have to find people around you that are going to support you unconditionally. And if they give you negative comments or project their negativity onto you to obstruct where you want to go, you got to tell them to get out of the way, go around it, or just tell them what they want to hear. That's what I did. I just told them what I told them. I just told them what they wanted to hear because they were getting in the way. So you need to go through them, go around them, but you always need to be going forward. How am I doing on time? took a psychology class, but you probably didn't study Albert Bandura from Stanford University. Albert Bandura wrote books on social learning, modeling, and self-efficacy. Basically what you're doing here are you right here. This is your actual self. You go to the university right now to graduate, to then go on to your ideal self. You see yourself in the future and where you want to be, but you can't get there because you're stuck here in the actual self. Now the question is, what is the ideal self? Well, the ideal self is basically made up of other individuals that are role models for you, that have positive attributes that you want to emulate. So basically you take the best people as role models, you take their attributes, you make them your target self and your ideal self, and you move towards becoming that ideal or target individual. The question is, you can't get there because there's a cognitive dissonance. There's a cognitive gap between your actual self and your ideal self. And the only way to close that gap is through the process of self-efficacy. The process of self-efficacy. And here's a perfect example of self-efficacy. Is I come across two individuals all the time in my classes, in my school, and in my students. Professor Suze, I'm a science and a math person. I like accounting, I like finance, I'm really good at it. I have a genetic predisposition to mathematics. I just want to be an analyst because I really don't like people very much. I'm not a good salesperson, and I'm not a manager, and I really don't want to do the people stuff. My parents were really good at math and science. I'm really good at math and science. They were successful. They have a good quality of life. I'm just going to emulate them, and I'm not going to do any of the management or the sales side. And then I got other students that tell me, well, I'm not really good at math, and I'm not really good at science, and I don't want to really be an analyst. I'm really good with people. I really like marketing. I like management. My parents were managers. They were really successful. I've seen the success of other people who are managers in sales. I'm going to do that, and I'm going to stay away from math and science. That's not necessarily how it works. The top people in organizations in the C-suites actually came in to either one side or the other through some type of social conditioning or modeling of other individuals. But they realized that they had to move up in the organization, that at some point in time they would need to rectify and correct their weaknesses. So if they were strong at math and science, they started doing marketing, sales, and management to be good at that too. And then the marketing and the sales and the management people also studied the math and the science and became good at that. So they saw what their weaknesses were, they addressed the weaknesses, and they became good at both and became a hybrid individual. If you can become this hybrid individual, there are huge rewards that come about from it. Well, the first thing is, when you walk into a room, you are going to have a persona. And the first thing they're going to look at is how you dress. They're going to judge you within 2 seconds based on how you look. So your persona, based on your personality, and based on your presence, leveraged by your dress, is the first thing they're going to see, and they're going to be gravitated to you. Then what's going to clinch them is your command of the language and your ability to communicate with extreme precision. Then also, you are going to obtain charisma. And if you have the charisma, you will then become the leader. And if you have charisma and you become the leader, you can wield power to basically get people to do things that they otherwise would not do. Because people are not motivated by money. They are motivated by love and other individuals. And they want to work with people that they want to work with. Not based on their compensation, but do they want to work with other people that they want to work with. And you've got to have the power and the charisma to do it. And through that power, you have the power of persuasion. But here's the most important aspect associated with this outcome, is if you can do all of this up to this point, you will become a model for other individuals. And people will come up to you and say, take me with you, Larry. Hire me. I want to work with you. And then at that point, you will get to decide, do I take them with me, or do I don't take them with me? Do I leave them behind? And who knows, maybe they had neurotic, or psychotic, or pathological behavior at some point in time. Maybe they were showing disrespect or some other kind of behavioral attribute, and you decided that I'm not going to take them with me. That's the saddest thing in the world, is not to be able to take people with you. And the greatest thing in the world is to be able to take people with you. How do you do it? How do you do it all? You got to plan. You got to be a planner. You got to plan. I hear it all the time. How did you do it, Professor Souza, in the last 15 years, 25 years, 5 masters, 200 grads, doctorate degree, 25 years of experience, teaching for 20. How did you do it? I planned. I did the whole thing. It was all planned out. I had a 5-year plan, going out 5 years, the goals and objectives and the milestones that I wanted to accomplish, and I updated it every single year for 15 years. If life issues came my way, I could push out those goals and objectives out into the future, but I never gave up on them. I always got what I wanted. I could lower the priorities and I could push them out, but the only thing that matters is you get what you want. And if it takes 3 months, so be it. 3 years, so be it. If it takes 30 years to get what you want, to get what you wanted, you get what you want. You got it. That's all that matters, is you got it. Then you got to have a tactical plan. 3 years broken up either into 6-month increments or into quarterly increments, again with metrics and milestones that you can measure that basically will show you that you're making progress. Then you need an operational plan where you lay out, this is a perfect time period now to get your calendar and start marking out the milestone dates that you want to accomplish and start backing in and hacking out time periods you need to sacrifice and focus to reach those milestone dates. And then the most important planning tool is your weekly planner. And your weekly plan has to be completely thought out for at least the next 2 weeks. And if you can go on a month, that's even better. You need to fill in your calendar for at least 2 weeks rolling going forward. And what's awesome is that time is standardized across the world. It's standardized. The world runs on the same schedule. From 9 a.m. to 8 a.m. in the morning, you can do whatever you want. From 8 to 9, you got to get to where you got to go. You got to go to work. From 12 to 1, you got lunch. From 1 to 5, you work. From 5 to 6, you got to go to wherever you got to go. And from 6 to 11 p.m. at night, you can do whatever you want. Professor Souza, I don't have enough time. You have the time. You're just not organized. You have plenty of time. You're reactive, not proactive, in deciding what you're going to do and planning everything out. You can mark out the time in which you need to commit, and when you have open spots, you can plug stuff in. You have the time. You're just not organized enough. So you got to be extremely organized. How am I doing on time? I might be able to do this. You guys are going to make a lot of money. You're all going to be extremely successful. You know, you're all very successful already. What are you going to do with the money? Well, the first thing you're going to do is you're going to be aggressive in your investments using a 401k plan that's going to be given to you by your employer, and hopefully they'll match your money because it's basically free money. And you want to keep at least 25 of your total net wealth into this qualified pre-tax realm. And at some point in time, you're going to make too much money, and you're going to be forced into the after-tax realm. And you're going to start investing in businesses and real estate, maybe Roth RIAs, stocks, bonds, those things. And then all of a sudden, those asset classes are going to increase in value over time, particularly the businesses and the real estate and the stocks. And you're going to take some of that money and you're going to bring it below the line and invest in safe after-tax vehicles, such as California muni bonds, cash value life insurance, and fixed annuities to basically create annuities of cash flows that are going to allow you so that you don't spend through all of your wealth and you can maintain a standard of living for you, your partner, and your family. There's risk management tools and there's investment management tools. On the risk management side, you need to get convertible term life insurance right now, because where in the world can you buy or lease an asset worth $1 million for $400 a year for 30 years, and if something happens to you, everybody around you gets the $1 million. It's the most brilliant thing in the world. And then you can convert it into permanent life insurance, variable universal, When you turn 50 years old, you want to get long-term care insurance unless you want to be living with your kids at 80 years old and blowing through your wealth and their wealth because you can't do two things, so you went into a congregate care facility and all of your money is basically going down the drain because you didn't get the long-term care insurance. And you can write off the long-term care premiums through your C corporation. They're going to get disability insurance on you, okay? And they're going to get life insurance policies on you too as you become higher up in the organization, so you better be insurable. If you own real estate, you need property casualty insurance and you need earthquake insurance and fire insurance unless you want to self-insure your property. If it burns down or it gets red tagged after an earthquake, you're not going to be able to make the mortgage payment and basically the bank's going to foreclose on your property and take it. Then you're going to need business umbrella insurance also, because if you own a business, somebody's going to try to sue you and take your money and take your business. So you're going to need the badass attorneys from New York and Chicago to come out here and take out the predators, to basically get rid of them, because they're going to try to take your money and take your business. Once you've done the risk management side of the business, if you believe in it, I hear people all the time, Professor Susan, I'm too young, I don't have kids, and I don't believe in life insurance. Great. We'll tell all the wealthy families in Silicon Valley and on the East Coast that they don't believe in life insurance because that was the #1 vehicle that they used to transfer wealth to their family in a tax-efficient way. So yeah, they're really stupid, right? Because they're the ones who are using it. No, they're the smartest ones in the world. That's because they can afford the best attorneys and the best accountants. So here's the qualified side. Never leave your 401k in a company, roll it over into a self-directed IRA. If you have some money in here, take some of the money and put it into a variable annuity with a guaranteed investment protection rider so you don't lose any money. You put 100 grand in the self-directed IRA, you buy the guaranteed investment protection rider, which is basically a 7-year put option, and you got 100 grand in the account. All of a sudden the market takes a correction of 50%. Now you only have 500 grand in there. But the insurance company pays the extra 50 grand and now you're back to 100 grand, okay? So the guaranteed investment protection will guarantee your money. Then you take another $1 million, you put it into a guaranteed future income annuity. I give the insurance company $1 million today. At 50, by the time I'm 70, they will pay me $100,000 a year for the rest of my life. So if I live until I'm 80 years old, I got my $1 million back. If I live to 90, I get another $1 million back. If I live to 100, which you will, the probability that you will live to 100 and 110 if this generation is highly probable. So you could actually make some money off buying this type of product from them because you're going to live until you're freaking 110, okay? But you gave them $1 million at 50 and you started taking 100 grand a year at 70 and the guarantee that they will give you the 100 grand a year for the rest of your life. So you don't spend through your money and it maintains your standing of living. Once you're done with the qualified side, you get a stock brokerage account. You put money in there, the stocks go up, you sell it one day, well, what you sold it for minus what you bought it for, you're going to pay some type of capital gains, either a short-term or long-term capital gains. People put a ton of money into these variable annuities with guaranteed investment protection riders after tax because there's no limit to the amount of money you can put in, and the money accumulates tax deferred until you pull it out in retirement. The rich guys love that vehicle too, and they love to put money into these guaranteed future income annuities after tax because of the 100 grand that you're taking from this after tax guaranteed future income annuity, you're only paying tax on the $30,000, the $66,000, you don't pay any tax because you already paid the income tax before, so it's a return to the basis. How much time do I have? I can do it. The last is basically trust structures. At some point in time, your grandparents and parents may have real estate assets or other appreciated assets. They're going to probably want to put them into an irrevocable trust. Why would you put it in the irrevocable trust? Because when you die, your assets go to your heirs at a stepped-up basis and you don't pay any taxes. The rich guys on the East Coast basically design that for themselves. Then you're going to have assets outside the trust that you can't put in that are going to be given to you by your parents or your grandparents. But what happens is when they die, these things get reassessed. And actually, if you have to sell these things to pay the tax liability, and since they're highly illiquid, your parents and your grandparents did not leave you any assets, they left you a tax liability. So what's the solution? And there's probably mortgage and personal debt, and there's business loans in there too. So basically, you got to be really careful what you're given, because you may be getting given liabilities, and you think you're getting assets. So what you got to do is you set up the irrevocable life insurance trust. You take some of the cash flows from here, you pay the premiums. When you die, the death benefit goes here. It extinguishes the taxes, it extinguishes the debt, and all of the assets, both outside and inside the trust, go to you debt-free and tax-free. Woo! The other thing is you have to be really careful about is taxes. Okay? And you got to be really careful about your money. And you got to be careful about the assets. And I'll probably end on this. You think you're going to get the money, you're not going to get the money. My parents, my grandparents have promised me the money. I'm going to get the money. I'm going to get the stock. I'm going to get the real estate. I'm going to get. No, you're not going to get it because you're not on the will. You're not on you're not on the living trust. You're not on the bank accounts. You're not on the deed. You're not going to get the money even though they tell you they're going to get the money. Who's on the deed? It's your sister. Who's on the bank account? The uncle. Who's on the living trust? Who's going to be overseeing the living trust? Your aunt. The ex-wife. No, she doesn't get anything. It's the new wife that gets it. It's the new husband. I'm serious. I've seen it. The kids were in line to get an inheritance. And the new wife came in and basically got the husband to rewrite everything, and all her kids got the estate. So if you don't know where the money is, you're not going to get it. If you're not on the documents, you're not going to get it. You got to be on it. They're going to take your money. I see it all the time. People are going to steal your stuff. And the number one culprit that's going to definitely steal your money is the government, if you're not smart. Income tax, federal, state, capital gains, recapture tax, transfer tax, retail sales tax. If you're not smart, they're going to get it. Or somebody else is going to get it too. Okay? So that's all I got.